Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Shawn Feurer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride. Welcome back to another episode of Inner Blueprint, the podcast for the home improvement industry, and with its ripple effect, anybody and everybody that's interested in thinking better thoughts to create some better feelings and get some better results. I am your co-host, Shawn Feurer, here with the beautiful, amazing
Caitlin Feurer, everybody's favorite.
That's true. I wish I could argue with that, but that is true. And as always, you guys, we excited for today's guest. You know, we work with a lot of amazing people, and as you'll notice, a lot of the guests that we have on are clients of ours that have done the mindset work, have also done a lot of other work and been in the industry for quite a while. I think one thing I'm excited about today's guest is he is a client of ours, but he's somewhat new to the mindset, and he's not new to the journey. He's been in the home improvement journey for a while. His story kind of has some twists and turns in it that I love because, you know, any good success story, it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. And when we start out on this path, sometimes the path changes. And I think for this guest, you're going to hear there's been some of that. I will share with you before we get him on the show here. He is the owner of a third-generation family-owned business in suburban Philadelphia, known for its legacy of trusted craftsmanship and outstanding customer experience. Since he joined the company in 2018, he's played a pivotal role in driving both its growth and success through strategic leadership, visionary planning, and a strong focus on building a cohesive, high-performing team. And I will add to this gentleman had really good mindset. He really did. We talk about some things called unconscious competence, where people just show up in a certain way without fully understanding it. And as I've heard more about his story, I can definitely say he had really good mindset when he met us. But as we're hoping to hear today, some wins that he's actually taken that to the next level. Before he stepped into the world of home improvement, he spent over a decade in nonprofit and real estate development. His career began in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, where he led neighborhood revitalization efforts in New Orleans, managing millions of dollars of residential construction and overseeing the completion of over 170 homes. He later moved to New York City, where he worked with a Brooklyn-based affordable housing developer, successfully leading the development of a 101-unit affordable housing high-rise. So I do love this because this gentleman has a lot of experience in our industry specific, but also some others. So I think without further ado, let's welcome to the show Mr. Jon Graboyes. Welcome.
Thank you, Shawn. Really excited to be here. That bio sounds really great when you read it, the one I wrote.
You did a great job. Yeah.
It's all true. It's all true.
Well, and it got me excited too, because, you know, and I think in our industry, it's so funny. We always say, it's not very often somebody wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to go to college and start a home improvement company. I mean, a lot of the people I work with, myself included, we grew up in a family business. We were either good at a trade, good at selling, and then we kind of get drawn into it. But for you, your story is a little bit different because you had not just parents that were in the business, but grandparents, and they gave you some different advice, right?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I haven't been in the industry too long, but obviously my family has been at this a real long time. My grandfather, Jon Graboyes, he founded the company back in 1949, and wow. My father, Rich, and my mother, Pam Graboyes, they ran the business for almost 40 years, and I was always told from a young age to go do something else. Running a contracting business is a hard life, and I was supposed to do something better, quote unquote. I did community development work for 10 years of my career, which was certainly very meaningful to me and had a lot of purpose in doing that work in New Orleans and in New York, and developed a lot of project management skills, learned how to execute. But ultimately, I came into this business after a lot of reflection and studying the opportunity as best I could. And, you know, I saw a path to having a really great life running a window and door business. So it's been a lot of hard work. Repositioning the company the last 6-7 years, and changes in people and process and family dynamics, and navigating through a small family company. But we've almost 3x the business, and wow. I'm really fortunate and grateful to my parents and grandparents for the opportunity. they did excellent work for a long, long time. And I'm just very grateful there was a company here for me to step into.
Oh, that's amazing. I would like you to touch, because you said you did research, and I talk all the time about the home improvement industry. And, we're always looking for good people. I work with companies all over the United States. And if you're in sales and you've ever sold anything, home improvement sales
Oh my gosh, it's like the best one to be in, and nobody tells you this. It's like the secret, it's like this kept secret of like, no, you want to be in sales. I was in a different form of sales, and I remember my commission was at the top tier of commission was 3%, 3%, and
you were in medical sales, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, no, and it's such a good industry, and I've done a lot of research. But what did you find when you were looking? Size of the industry. What drew you to home improvement, John?
Well, I mean, I was finding myself stuck in my career, and honestly, I was having a lot more stress working for other people and having my future and my promotions and my earning potential and in the hands of someone else. And, working for nonprofit groups that were run like businesses, and there were certainly well-compensated individuals there, but there was no clear formula for getting ahead. And so, I spoke to my father and learned about the business and how it was set up. And I saw the fundamentals were here and the reputation was in place. And it was really just about having a more self-directed life, taking control of my future, of my destiny. And I saw a lot of opportunity to build a life around the business. And that's what ultimately got me to make the move.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we left New York, and my wife was actually pregnant with our first daughter, and I do remember driving up to our shop here in commercial strip in suburban Philly. Had just left Brooklyn. I was like, what the heck have I done with my life?
Yeah.
I have a question for you about that too, because I grew up, my dad owned a home improvement company, and I watched him work with his wife. She was my stepmom at the time. She's an amazing woman. And I remember growing up going, I am never going to do that. Like, I'm going to do something so different than that. I never want to do that. And now look at me, here I am in the home improvement business again, which is so interesting. Did you ever feel like, I'm never doing that? Like, that is something I just don't want to do?
Oh, absolutely. All the advice I always got from my grandparents and from my parents was like, go do something else. Like, you're supposed to do something else. And so when I got into the family business, it really took a while to reimagine myself and to find myself in this new identity and this new career I was building. And, now doing well, and the business is doing well. And, I give a lot of credit to, seeking and receiving help from others. The people have been very kind and generous in this industry and have really helped me cut the learning curve into, the core skills I had to develop when I came into this business.
Yeah. And that's one thing I do love about the industry too, is if you're seeking, you'll find it in this industry, I feel like. And I don't know that much about other industries, because I literally started in this industry as a 6-year-old kid growing up in the family business. But I know Certified Contractors Network, I know you've been part of Brian Kay's groups. There are so many, organizations, and then the contractors you meet. There are so many people, just like you're willing to help people. And I really do love that about the industry. So again, if you're listening and you want to work for a good company, reach out to me. I'll hook you up wherever part of the country you are. We've got business owners in almost every part of the United States and now into Canada. And in-home sales is great, management. And then obviously, if you're an entrepreneur looking for something new, we've got some opportunities. And other thing I love about our groups is it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. There is so much work to be had out there. John, you joined the business in 2018, is that right? When you made the transition?
That's correct. Yep.
What, and again, no specifics, but size of the company, gross revenue, which we know doesn't mean anything, but just for comparison here, how big was the company?
Yeah, when I came into the company, we were about a $2.5–3 million company. And like I said, we've about 3x'd our revenue over that period of time, and done a lot of work to re-engineer the profit model as well to ensure that we have a profitable company. And there's also been a tremendous amount of turnover. When you come into these businesses, and I've heard this at many points in the last couple of years, that the people who got you there won't take you where you're going, so to speak.
Yep.
And so sure enough, when I came into the company, a lot of folks that had been here a long time ultimately we moved away from. And it's been really exciting for me over the last couple years to build my own team, bring in really high level, tremendous people, handpick people that I get to come in and do this work with every day. And I just feel really blessed and fortunate for that opportunity.
What? And I'm just curious. So a little over 2 million, was that the average for like most of the entire history of the company? Did it kind of fluctuate? Did it ever go much above that? Or was it always like 1 to 3 million over like, what is it, 80 years? How many years is that? I didn't do the math ahead of
Yeah,
that.
so last year was our 75th year. So we're at the beginning of our 76th year
Wow.
now. And yeah, my father ran the business, really ran all of the departments in the company. He had total control of the company. And, by brute force, ran a $1 to $2 million company for almost 40 years. And over the last couple of years, we've done a lot of work to break through. And, COVID was a big opportunity for us to grab market share as everybody was doing so much work and people were stuck at home and doing remodeling, that our company about 2x'd its size through 2020 into 2021.
Wow. Talk about that for a second, because you weren't working with us on mindset at any level. And as you said, I mean, a lot of your competition shut down, got scared, went into scarcity, cut budgets. Mm-hmm. How did you approach COVID, and what did you do starting in March of 2020?
Yeah, I just tried to stay busy. When we shut down, we took on a lot of new projects, developed new contracting software, moved on from some people in the company that had been here a real long time, and leaned into my networks. I've always tried to utilize best practices and the models that are out there in all the work that I do. And as you mentioned, I've done a lot of work with the Wealthy Contractor Network and Brian Casamelcian, and I started going to like the Accelerate Live events, and actually that's where I heard you speak for the first time, Shawn, was
that's right.
At one of those Accelerate events. And now I'm actually speaking at Accelerate in a few weeks, which is absolutely crazy to me.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations, man. That's a huge win.
Yeah, thank you.
But I love how you said that too at the beginning. You said, "Oh, COVID was a great opportunity for us." I mean, that is something most people are like, "Oh, COVID happened and we weren't sure what." And you just said that was a great opportunity for us. And I love how you mentioned too that it allowed you the opportunity to get rid of some people that, although they had been loyal and wonderful to the company, they were holding it back at some level. I think that is amazing that you already have the mindset based on that. Like, COVID was an amazing opportunity for our company.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the best entrepreneurs and business owners that I've met just look at the circumstances that happened to them, good or bad, as just the next opportunity, and to keep moving through it and to make the most of whatever is happening to you in the current moment, and just keep moving forward no matter what you're up against.
I love that. And again, from 2018 when you joined COVID, you've done 3x the business. You're speaking at events. You've done amazing work. How long ago did you start working with us, and what's been the impact? Because, we talk a lot about, and I'm a big believer in best practices. I was a CCN member for a long time. I was a coach. But for me, best practices without best mindset doesn't get best results. You have to add a combination of knowing and then actually doing what you know you should do. And prior to meeting me, you were doing a really good job. Has that increased at all since you joined Inner Blueprint? And what does that look like today compared to when you started?
Yeah, so, I turned 40 in the fall. I think I got started working with you in the summer. And, in part it was turning 40. And I guess I tend to get a bit introspective around round numbers. And, 40 is traditionally this moment in your life, and it's considered middle age. And, it's funny. I found half the people in my life saying, "You're so young," and half the people in my life complaining about how old we are now. And I think that sparked something in me, like, this is the prime time. Like, you get one chance, and time can pass really quick if you let it. And I didn't want to look back in 5, 10, 20 years from now and have regrets. And, so go get it now. Have the income you want now, have the health, wellness, body that you want now. Get focused on having the quality of relationships I want in my life now. So I had a lot of urgency around joining the group and what I was going to get out of it.
Oh,
Well, they say, your 30s are for learning, right? Your 30s are for learning, and then your 40s are for unlearning. And so that's where you get to unlearn all the bullshit that's programmed into us. So in the 50s, you can really finally accept who you are and things like that. And so I love that you said that, because so many people think, I remember growing up thinking 40 was so old. I think when my aunt turned 40, we decorated her front yard with tombstones, and it was over the hill. And I was like, gosh, when you turn 40, that means you're so old. But you brought it up, and Shawn is a good example.
You're almost 40.
We're not talking about that. But I think life begins at 40, because you've learned up to a point, and then you've learned that, wow, I have some things I need to unlearn to take me to the next level, to the best years of my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and it's been this new daily practice for me. And there's guys in the group who've been at it for 5 years, and I can see why, because it's a practice. It's something that you commit to doing and working on each day. And there's different levels to it, and the deeper you go, the first time, the second time through, and things that you might not necessarily be ready for. Maybe you need a little more time to think about the first time through. And, I personally tend to take my time and to process. And when I'm ready, it's, usually this explosion of work and kind of this flow state of creativity. But, I often take my time getting there, so that's probably something I should work on, because, a lot of your program talks about, your default mode should just be take action now, keep moving forward.
Yes and no, though. And I think for you, because success leaves clues, and you've been pretty successful on every step of the way up till now. And I have found there's some people that get it really quick and go hard really quick, but there's a lot that do what you're doing a little bit. And I call it the slow burn, right? You're taking your time, you're soaking it in. And the most important thing is getting down to 30 minutes a day. And if you do that, what you just described, Jon, is what you're going to experience. Is you're going to all of a sudden turn a corner, and I know you've done really well and you've had some amazing results. I'm just going to plant the seed right now. We'll have it recorded and out there floating on the podcast. Dude, just wait for 6 months to a year from now, when some of the things that you're working on now with your affirmation, with intention, and they start to click. Because again, I was really shitty with mindset, I would say, when I went through some of my struggles 10 years ago. And it's funny, because I was going through a mess when I turned 40, and that's what drove me to found this material. But in the last 2 years, and how did I get good at it? Teaching it every day. But as I teach it every day, I do it. And I always just say, trust the process. So wherever you are right now, don't say you should be doing it better. Don't even shift it, I don't think. Maybe be some more commitment if you're missing days. But wouldn't you agree? What do you think, Kay?
Definitely. A lot of feedback we get is a lot of people join our program because they hear such great things about it, but then they enter it with a level of hesitancy, right? You don't really know what to expect, what this is. You get on a call, and some guys are going off about all the amazing things, and some guys, don't even turn their camera on. And so there's always just this really good balance of where it is and where you need to look inside to go, why am I being a little bit hesitant with this? What does it take to get to that level of some of these other people? But there's no wrong way to do it. As long as you're doing it, you're doing it. And so you're not alone, because a lot of people join our program with a level of hesitancy.
Yeah, and it quickly becomes, a daily practice. And when I don't get to it for whatever reason, I kind of feel off. And, and it does take, some time to develop initially, and the daily work takes time too. It's a process. It usually takes me about, 30 minutes in the morning to go through it all. And Shawn, you talk a lot about, writing things down, and that's where it's at for me. And I know it's hard for some people. You've got me paired up with a great mentor in the group, Tim Brown, who really encouraged me to get into the group. And, Tim, for me, he's like an absolute legend, and he's the model for me. And we're really different people, but, in a lot of ways, I'm following Tim's example for, how he's handled being a leader of his family business, and how he's built his team, and how he takes care of his team and trains them and trusts them. and Tim tends to have some resistance of putting pen to paper. For me, that's where the gold is. And now I'm calling out Tim on my podcast, but for me, there's this this
Tim,
magic
start
in the
writing.
writing.
Yeah, Tim,
start writing.
I know you're listening, Tim. Start writing. Like and again, John,
And
you go.
and I really try to take care, in my handwriting, I'm almost like I'm illustrating my day, my life, and the power and the meaning of the words that I'm putting into the paper. So for me, the writing has been a really powerful daily practice.
I love that. Have you done your life script yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
That's your action item for this round. I'm going to get you to write.
Yes, we're going to start coaching you on a podcast. No, but if you like writing, which you do, that can be one of the most transformational. And when we get to module 6 this round, just consider it and look at it, because that for me, when I look back, and I wrote mine in 2014, and I was broken, dude, and I didn't really have good mindset. I just saw a spiritual teacher that said, write your life script letter, present tense as if it's perfect, and the 5 categories I did it in, they were all a mess. And I wrote it, faked it, right? Wrote it the way I wanted it to, and then it actually is what helped me find this material, honestly. So it is a cool process. I would highly recommend you start that.
Well, and I can share one on that too, John. It was something that I coached people to do nonstop, and I created the template of how to do it. And I still hadn't done it myself because I had a lot of beliefs that when I wrote something, I mean, I was, through high school and college, I was, the top of my class when it came to writing and reading, and in AP classes, and scored, state highs and the ACTs and things like that. So I thought when I wrote this, it had to be so perfect, and a professor was going to be grading it. And so I just had these weird reservations that really made no sense. And so finally I was just like, Shawn was like, you got to write it by the end of the weekend. And I was like, challenge accepted. Tell me that I have to do something or that I can't, and I'll show you that I will. And I wrote it, and there was a part in there that I wrote that, Shawn and I fly private, and we get to travel or spend time in the Caribbean for, weeks at a time. And at the time, I hadn't even been to the Caribbean ever. So I was like, this is just, a someday fairy tale. And within 10 days of writing that letter, received a call, and Shawn and I were invited on this trip. I didn't have to plan it. I didn't have to make it happen. We were invited on this trip, and we got to fly private and spend weeks in the Caribbean on a private yacht.
And they wouldn't let us pay him anything for it. That was a crazy thing about it. I was like, I'm glad you wrote it, but you should have wrote this letter a couple of years ago. Imagine where we'd be right now if you started writing letters.
So yes, that is something I really want you to work on this round, and just understand the power of it, because it comes to us in possibilities that we can't even imagine when we start writing things down like that. But you've hit on the writing down, which is huge.
Yeah. And I love that you said too, John, trust the process, right? Like, you're doing the dailies, seeing the importance. Any takeaway wins, even outside the business, anything in your personal life that you felt a shift since thinking about your mind and the mindset differently that you can share? Because I love those wins. They're my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I came into the group, I was feeling a bit stuck in some of my daily habits, my nutrition, my ability to work out and have routines that I felt good about. And, I spent a lot of time through the modules, thinking about what I wanted. And as I put that to pen to paper and said, well, this is what I want. And I had a really hard time transitioning to the second module, which was what holds you back. And again, I needed to take some time and space to really, do that work. And I think I was on a plane and traveling and, started again, putting pen to paper and writing it down. And, I started writing down how some of these habits were getting in the way of all of the positive things that I was working towards. And when I started to see it in that way, I had so much more motivation to change the behavior that was limiting my ability to go where I was trying to go.
I love that. And so have you seen a shift in some of that then, as far as the results?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, something that, I've written into my material is that, I maintain age-defying health and fitness.
Ooh, I love that.
Okay.
I love that.
If that's, if that's a goal of mine, well, there's really specific behaviors that I have to exhibit to be that person. I have to go to the doctor. I have to do my blood work. I have to respond to what that information tells me, and maybe make some changes in my diet and make some changes in my exercise routine. And again, when you know what you want, the behaviors become very clear as to how you have to, to act to get where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my biggest learning and win, especially on the health and wellness side, is prior to finding Bob's material and starting on the mindset. I worked out a lot. I mean, 5 days a week. And when I had my business, 5:30 to 6:30. And I never really looked that good. And I never really felt that good, right? I always felt tired. I always felt like I was pushing myself harder than maybe I should, but I knew I needed to. And just shifting and setting intentions and doing affirmation work, I feel like I spend less time at the gym, have more energy, look better. And even on the medical side, less prescriptions, more just healthy eating. So I love to see you lean into that as well. That's cool.
How have you seen it? I mean, you're a husband, you're a father. Have you seen a trickle effect at all into your relationships with your wife or your children?
Well, I mean, it's a growth mindset. And when you have a growth mindset, I think about it in terms of, my relationships. My marriage, we're 20 years together now, 10 years married, and,
Wow.
and it's a growing relationship. And I have these 2 little girls that we're raising, and they're literally, growing, in front of my eyes every day. And, again, it's just coming with urgency around those relationships, to be present, to be thoughtful, to lean in, and, not take any of that for granted. Again, time can go by really fast, and, I want to feel like, I enjoyed every minute of these phases. 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, daughters, that this period isn't going to last forever.
It doesn't. It goes by so quick.
Yeah. With Kaylin's, we have a 13 and 16-year-old, and I met him 4 years ago, and those 4 years have flown by. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I have a 26, is he 26 or 27?
26.
Yeah, 26, 27 this year. I remember holding him as a baby. Like, it was seriously yesterday. It really is. That's one thing on presence, and I love that about Inner Blueprint students is we do, get really present, and the importance of that.
Well, and I think you're setting a really great example. The work you're doing on yourself, it does, whether you like it or not, it trickles into every area of your life. And so you're setting a great example, not just for your daughters, but also for your wife. Like, I'm invested in myself, and I know what I want, and I'm willing to do what it takes. So you're granting permission for your wife and your little girls to do the same. And it's so important in children. I mean, teaching them, like, you can do whatever you want. And I'm going to show you the way that I do it my way. And I want to give you permission to do it your way too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, getting clear on what it is that you want and what your goals are, which is the work that you do when you join this group. I mean, it definitely has, lent itself to a number of conversations that some were really exciting and we both shared the same dream, and some were, a little difficult. Like, that's really what you want, but that's progress. That's moving forward. And so, the work that I've done here with your group has, definitely found its way into those conversations that we're having as a family.
Oh, I love that. And John, you probably already have, but I just have to say this, especially with young girls, because like my, 13 and 16-year-old, I spend a lot of time making sure they know how powerful they are, how beautiful they are, because we live in a world, whether it's social media, television shows, mean kids at school, that gets questioned almost all day, every day.
Yes.
And really, that's one of my ripple effects of this, is just making sure we help, as you love and trust yourself more, we help them understand the power of affirmation, and as fathers, really affirm them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, going back to the business, obviously the mindset's made a difference in your growth. And I know listeners are like, Shawn, we know a little bit about mindset. Maybe talk about some processes. As you tripled the business and did what you did, what have been some of the most important changes you made in a 3-generation family business that you come into? What are some of the initial changes, and in the last couple of years, organizational changes that have really moved the needle on that growth?
Yeah. So when I came into the business, it was really a bit of a time capsule, because as I said, I was off having my own career and doing other work and really giving my father and mother no indication that I had any interest whatsoever into coming into the company. So, the business itself was, like I said, a bit of a time capsule. The progress had stopped. The company was run on a fax machine and copper telephone lines. And, so when I joined the company and set this vision for where we were going, really every system within the company had to be reimagined and reworked. And as I said before, a lot of people have turned over here during that time. And so that meant putting in a sales process and putting in a CRM and figuring out digital marketing. And so, really the entire company has had to be reimagined and gone to work on changing these processes and these people. And, now we're in this place where we all have very big visions of what the future could be now. And we set these goals, and we continue to just pass them and set new goals, and it's been a really exciting time.
I love that.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, so often we do these things where we set smart goals, right? Like even when we're doing business planning or things like that, like, oh, we did this much this year, we're going to do this much next year, and here's the path to do that. But when you get into our program, you see that's just a B goal, right? And you, as the visionary, as the leader of the company, you have way bigger goals, I'm sure, that make no sense at some level. And so where you hold that belief, even putting those processes in place, that you're going to overshoot them or exceed them often. And you're instilling that belief within these high-level leaders within your organization. And I think that is so important, because so many times we limit ourselves because we think we need to see the perfect, the perfect journey or the perfect way to get from one point to the next. And where you're just starting in this mindset, you're already seeing like, hey, I know where I want to go. I know where I see this, and maybe it won't be this year, but I know we're going to go there. And so I'm sure within your organization, you're not just meeting your goals, you're exceeding them often.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a kind of remarkable experience to do planning work like we did several years ago, and to set goals and to set personal goals. And when you do exceed them and you look back and you've passed it and it's time to set a new goal, it is an incredible, experience to look back and reflect on. And, we've done a lot of work here and changed a lot of processes and people. And, now we're having conversations that I never imagined having about, where we're going as a company and, the type of revenue that we're going to shoot for. And I never imagined it at the time, but you set these goals, you pass them, and it's time for new ones.
Yeah, I love it. Anything in 2025 or in the near future that's exciting, or that you're shooting for to make a change or do something that you didn't think you were going to do before? Anything exciting coming?
Well, we've got a lot of, some new softwares that we're implementing. And what's great is, when I brought new tools and software to the team, like in COVID, and I did these projects, I had to build a lot of them myself.
Yep.
And I worked on them and I moved on to the next thing, and everybody kind of had to make it work. And now I've got this great team of people who take ownership in everything that we do here. So now as we implement new software, and we have new contracting software and a new sales presentation platform that we're launching this year, it's no longer like John's platform. It's the team's platform, and they all have ownership of it and are excited about it, that they can innovate going forward and solve problems going forward, rather than being like, I don't know, John set that up, I don't know how to do that.
That's got to feel good, because you can truly be a visionary and then have people take hold of it and run with it.
Well, that
Exactly.
It's so important too, because there are so many people right now that have people in their organization that don't want to change, or are scared to change, or are scared to do these things. And so, yeah, you're right. They look at like someone like you, or, the owner comes in, or so high level leader comes in at some point and says, we're changing the CRM. And the entire company goes, we can't do that. That's a terrible idea. Why can't we just keep it the way it was? And it's like, well, because again, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the way that it's going to take us to where we need to go. And so you're giving hope right now. I mean, I hope this episode gives hope to people that are like, well, we can never do that because, this person or this person's never going to be on board, or like no one's ever going to be that. Like, it's always going to have to be me implementing everything and changing everything. And you're showing the way right now that no, it doesn't have to be that way. And yeah, maybe it was that way 4 years ago, 5 years ago, but it's not anymore. So if you'll speak more on that too, because you've changed the culture of your company since you've come in.
Yeah, I mean, a book that I read recently that I've referenced is 10X is easier than 2X,
Yep.
Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And, in a way, it's easier to have the big goal because it limits the path that you can take to get there. It limits the decisions that you can make when you have a big goal and you know exactly where you're heading. You can't waste time with the things, the people, the processes that aren't going to get you where you're going. So I think the team here really gets that, embraces that, and it's been really wonderful to see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
That's
so
awesome.
great. I mean, that is you are a lighthouse to so many people right now. I mean, even clients of ours that are like, well, I want to do that, but I can't because, of what the sales team will think or what the admins will say, or like production's never going to go on board with that. And I mean, you've shown like, yeah, they will, and they have, and this is how it's improved our business. And so why can't it improve yours if you do it, right?
Definitely.
Love it. I love the book suggestion for people too. Anything else? If listeners are listening, say, "Gosh, we love what Jon's done in his business. We understand some of the things he's plugged into." Any other books or processes? We didn't talk about. Do you use EOS in your business? Is that a process you guys use or not?
Yeah, we do use EOS, and early on when I was in the company and my father was still very involved in the business, we were looking for help to get unstuck. We were looking for help to figure out, where we were going to take the company. And I was looking for a consultant who we could bring on who could help us put a plan together and show us how to move forward with where we wanted to take the business. And someone made the suggestion to me to check out EOS and introduce me to an implementer. And it was, one of the best decisions we could make at the time because it brought the company together around the planning process. It brought all the people that were involved here around what is our vision, what is our niche, what is our moonshot goal that we're going after in the next 10 years. And so it gave everybody ownership of what we were doing rather than just bringing in somebody from the outside and telling us.
Yeah.
It's so much better that way. It really is so much
well,
better.
and
that way.
listeners, this is a mindset podcast, but if you're listening and you're looking for a system, EOS, if you've heard about it, thought about it, I mean, Jon, would you say, I don't even care what size. I mean, we're a small company with me, Caitlin, and Heather, our ops, and I read about it, was trying to self-implement, and we hired a coach almost a year ago.
A year ago, yeah.
And just had our 2-day annual, and our business exploded last year with EOS as the core training. Me as a control freak, solopreneur. I mean, it's literally, there's 3 of us, but I'm actually allowing, trusting, letting my good mindset flow into a process in the business. So same advice from you, right? Get a coach.
Yeah, no, it's terrific. And it gives you a framework to manage from. And it gives you a system to make sure that things are tracked, that numbers get reported, that to-dos and the 90-day projects, rocks, all get captured and followed up on. And so it gives you a system that, holds everybody accountable.
And that's the biggest word. If I had to pick one word that EOS brings to a business, it's accountability.
100%.
Yeah, and especially for the owner. I mean, we talk in the mindset group. Most owners aren't very accountable to themselves. They can break the rules, change the rules. Even with their wives who try to hold them accountable, they sometimes squirm. And when you get in the visionary seat, if you got a good coach, I don't know what your experience has been, but I get thumped on if I'm not being accountable to my integrator to do what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Which is refreshing, right? I mean, we don't want to break the rules. We just can.
And EOS is, again, it's so great at accountability. And that's what I think our group does too, our men's group. They don't just let you do whatever you want, Jon. If you're like having a struggle, they're not just like, oh yeah, that sucks. Those people are, that it's because of them. They're like, where's your mindset on this, Jon? Like, where are you creating this? And you're like, oh man, I got to be accountable to these guys now too. Like, there's no sidestepping anything, which is awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the group, the network, the weekly calls, it's a really powerful component of the program. I mean, you're just surrounded by all stars and people who've done great things with their company. And yes, people do a great job of being really vulnerable and bringing their problems to the group and helping get through it. But you certainly don't want to let anybody down and show up and not do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Oh, I love hearing that, because that is the intent, and happy to hear it's hitting, especially for you. Well, any last tips or tricks for listeners? Maybe one, just what's your favorite book when it comes to business? Do you have a favorite, or like one that sits above the rest, Jon?
Oh, man.
I know that's a tough one. We have so much good information nowadays.
Well, one that I wrote down next to the 10X was a book that I've given out to as a gift many times, and that's Getting Things Done by David Allen. And I think it kind of ties into a lot of the mindset work, and it's this idea of the external brain, and that you have to have good systems to offload your task and your ideas and free your mind so that you can do the deeper work and have more focus and more creativity. So that's a book that is really fundamental to all of my task-based process. Other than that, the E-Myth was really fundamental in getting me to take the leap into the business to begin with. And franchise model that Michael Gerber talks about is something that is a lens we've looked at all of our decisions in our company through. Is this a process that is franchisable, that is scalable, that can stand on its own without me or an owner taking control of everything? So those are some key books for me.
Yeah.
I love it. All good ones.
Great ones.
Well, Jon, thank you for being on. Do you have anything else, Kate?
No, Jon, I'm so grateful you were on our podcast. And I think what you shared, again, I think that you're such a lighthouse to so many people, so many listeners, so many, current clients and future clients of ours. Just because it's been this way for 40 years doesn't mean it has to continue that way. Yes, there were some things that got you there, but they're not going to get you to that next point. And you've shown in a very short amount of time what happens when you aren't afraid to make those changes, to let those people go, to really believe in yourself and shoot for things bigger than your parents or your grandparents ever did. And I think that is really remarkable and really respectable.
Well, I do too. And you mentioned Tim Brown, multi-generational business. And
Yeah.
Tim's done amazing. His dad did a good job, built a long-lasting business, but Tim's taken the next level. And a lot of our group, husband, wives, brothers, multi-generational. And if you're listening, you're part of a multi-generational and you're feeling stuck. You're feeling like, how can I get it to the next level? Listen to this episode on repeat. Find the one with Tim Brown that we did and reach out to us. We're all here to help you. This podcast is our give back. We're trying to get the message out there. We do have a 30-day challenge right now. If you're listening, you're not in the industry and you still want some help, just send us your email address. We'll put you in a free challenge. The whole point of the challenge is 30 minutes a day. It's what Jon does as part of his mindset work. It's what me and Caitlin do every single day. 15 minutes of good material, 5 minutes of a goal, 5 minutes of affirmation. We do IMs in our program, and 5 minutes of gratitude. And with that, I'm just going to wrap this up with a lot of gratitude for you listening. Jon, thanks for your time today. I know your time is valuable. Lots of places you could have been. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you, Caitlin, and enjoy the ride, everybody. It's a good one. Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Shawn Feurer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride.